Boarded-up shops, desolate downtowns, city halls desperately trying to balance budgets that refuse to budge. This isn't a scene from a dystopian movie. It's the unfolding reality for some American cities. Could your city be facing a similar fate? While the skyscrapers might still gleam and the traffic still buzzes on the surface, a silent crisis is festering beneath. What occurs when the tax base evaporates, essential services crumble, and the bills simply cannot be paid? Some urban centers across the United States are already dangerously close to the edge, buckling under the weight of massive debt, dwindling populations, and promises they financially cannot uphold. This isn't just happening in remote small towns. Major metropolitan areas, once thriving hubs of activity, are now showing signs of serious financial strain, essentially bleeding resources. Is your hometown teetering on the brink of collapse? We're about to delve into the 10 U.S. cities most likely to be the first dominoes to fall if the economy takes a significant downturn. A lot has been happening around the world, and these domestic pressures are mounting. Let's examine these situations closely. Stick with us, as we'll have crucial conclusions at the end of this analysis. Before we dive deeper, if you find this information valuable, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the like button. Your support is vital for helping us bring these important stories to light and allows us to continue our work. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our audience across the globe. New York City, the Big Apple, globally recognized as one of the wealthiest cities on the planet. It's a beacon of finance, culture, and seemingly endless opportunity. But concealed behind the dazzling lights of Times Square and the multi-billion-dollar skyscrapers piercing the skyline, a profound issue festers. Something is seriously amiss in the financial heart of America. New York City is currently submerged under an astonishing debt exceeding $171 billion. Let that number sink in. $171 billion. And incredibly, this figure doesn't even encompass the future pension obligations promised to its public workforce, obligations that represent another massive financial commitment looming on the horizon. How does a metropolis that famously never sleeps manage to keep functioning when it appears to be running on financial fumes? You might be truly shocked to discover just how precarious the city's financial foundation actually is. The sheer scale of the debt translates to a burden of approximately $71,400 for every single taxpayer in the city. Imagine receiving a bill for that amount simply because you reside there. If a major economic crash were to strike the nation, a scenario many economists are increasingly warning about, the iconic Big Apple could begin to decay from its core outwards. The consequences would ripple through every facet of city life. Think about the essential services. Schools are already facing underfunding issues, potentially leading to larger class sizes, fewer resources, and program cuts. City services, from sanitation to public transportation, would likely be slashed dramatically, impacting the daily lives of millions. Crime rates, often exacerbated by economic hardship and reduced public service capacity, could see a significant rise, further destabilizing neighborhoods. The visible wealth, the glittering facade, might appear infinite, but the underlying reality is that the bills are relentlessly accumulating. Compounding this precarious situation is a demographic trend. More people are moving out of New York City than are moving in. This outward migration shrinks the tax base further, leaving fewer residents to shoulder the immense financial burden. So, who exactly is left to foot the bill? Have you ever stopped to consider what happens when a city of this magnitude, this importance, begins to crumble under its own financial weight? The New York City you recognize today might be drastically different in just a few short years if these trends continue unchecked. Please, make sure you watch this video until the end, as we will be drawing some critical conclusions about these situations. Chicago, Illinois. Often referred to as the heart of the Midwest, a vibrant hub of culture, commerce, and architecture. But what transpires when that heart begins to experience irregular rhythms, skipping beats under financial strain? Chicago finds itself buried beneath a staggering $38.2 billion in debt. This isn't just a minor shortfall, it's a colossal financial hole. Furthermore, the city has been assigned an F grade for its fiscal health by independent watchdog organizations, a failing mark that signifies dire financial mismanagement. The alarm bells regarding Chicago's financial stability are no longer just ringing. They are blaring loudly. You might be astonished to learn how many essential lifelines for the city's economy and residents have already been severed or are severely frayed. Major retail chains, once anchors of commercial districts, are fleeing the city at an alarming rate, citing unfavorable economic conditions and security concerns. Entire shopping districts, formerly bustling with activity, now stand eerily quiet, dotted with vacant storefronts and reduced foot traffic. What's driving this decline? It's a toxic combination of persistently high crime rates, which deter both shoppers and businesses, burdensome high taxes that place a heavy load on residents and enterprises alike, and years upon years of documented financial mismanagement by city officials. But here's a figure that truly brings the crisis home. Guess what? Each resident in Chicago effectively owes over $40,900 just for the city to reach a point of breaking even on its existing obligations. This isn't merely a budget gap. It's a flashing red warning sign, a signal of potentially catastrophic financial distress ahead. Consider the implications. When the broader economy inevitably experiences a downturn or a hit, how long can a city in such a precarious financial position like Chicago realistically keep the lights on and maintain essential functions? We're not simply discussing a gradual slowdown or a minor recessionary impact here. We're talking about the genuine potential for a full-scale collapse of city services and financial solvency. Do you still believe that major cities are inherently immune to such failures? The evidence from Chicago suggests otherwise. Honolulu, Hawaii. Picture paradise. Crystal clear turquoise waters lapping against sandy shores, palm trees swaying gently in the tropical breeze. It's the dream destination etched onto nearly every traveler's bucket list, an image of serenity and escape. But what if, concealed behind this idyllic postcard image, lies one of the most financially fragile economies within the entire United States? That is the startling reality concerning Honolulu, Hawaii. It's a city where breathtaking natural beauty serves as a distraction from a brewing financial catastrophe simmering just beneath the surface. Honolulu is grappling with a failing fiscal grade, assigned due to its precarious financial state, and is burdened by a significant taxpayer liability. Each resident carries a share of the city's debt amounting to nearly $31,700 per person. The visible cracks in this paradise's foundation are widening at an accelerating pace. You would likely never guess, looking at the stunning island landscapes and luxurious resorts, that this city is billions of dollars in the red. But guess what? The monetary problems run exceptionally deep. The lifeblood of Honolulu's, and indeed Hawaii's, economy is tourism. But this heavy reliance creates extreme vulnerability. What happens when global travel patterns shift, slow down due to economic uncertainty, or halt altogether, as witnessed during recent global events? During the pandemic, the impact was devastating. Over 220,000 jobs vanished statewide as travel restrictions took hold, and Honolulu, as the state's primary hub, felt the brunt of this economic shockwave disproportionately. Hotel revenues plummeted. Countless small businesses reliant on tourist dollars were forced to shut down permanently, and even property values experienced significant drops. Even now, well after the peak of the pandemic, many sectors of Honolulu's economy haven't fully recovered. The city government's spending habits exacerbate the problem. It consistently spends over $1.50 for every dollar it collects in revenue. This represents an unsustainable burn rate, a financial trajectory that would be alarming even in the most robust economic climate. And here's the crucial kicker. The cost of living in Honolulu is the absolute highest in the United States, surpassing even notoriously expensive cities like San Francisco. So, while residents struggle immensely to afford basic necessities like housing, food, and utilities, the city administration continues to dig itself deeper into a pit of debt. Infrastructure across the city is aging and requires significant investment. Homelessness is visibly rising, creating social challenges and straining resources. Furthermore, massive pension obligations owed to public workers remain significantly underfunded, representing a ticking financial time bomb. Do you still think paradise is forever? Think again. One sharp, unexpected economic downturn, and Honolulu could face a financial storm far worse than any hurricane it has ever weathered. Portland, Oregon. It was once widely celebrated as a symbol of creativity, progressive values, and forward-thinking urban living. Portland was the city where young people flocked to start fresh, cultivate innovative businesses, and embrace a lifestyle perceived as free and alternative. It cultivated an image of quirky charm and environmental consciousness. However, in recent years, it feels as though something has gone terribly wrong within the Rose City. The narrative has shifted dramatically. Portland, Oregon, has quietly, yet alarmingly, earned an F grade in fiscal health from independent financial analysts. This failing grade reflects deep-seated financial problems. If you scratch beneath the surface of its trendy cafes and green initiatives, you'll uncover the reasons why many experts now assert that Portland is perilously close to the edge of collapse. The financial figures paint a stark and brutal picture. For every $1 the city generates in revenue, Portland's government has made commitments amounting to $1.40 in spending. A significant portion of this promised expenditure is tied up in pensions and post-employment benefits for city workers, obligations that are worryingly not fully funded. To translate this financial jargon, the city is consistently operating in the red, spending significantly more than it takes in, and essentially relying on hope and potentially unstable future revenues to cover the gap. They're hoping that no one notices the growing discrepancy. But people are noticing. Residents are feeling the pinch of rising costs for essential services. Crime rates have seen disturbing increases, impacting public safety and neighborhood stability. Business confidence has plummeted, shaken by the city's perceived instability and policy challenges. These factors combined have fundamentally shaken the city's core. Commercial corridors that were once bustling hubs of local commerce and activity are noticeably thinning out, with increasing vacancies and reduced foot traffic. Big-name stores and established businesses, once fixtures of the Portland scene, are disappearing, citing a challenging operating environment. But guess what might be even more alarming for the city's long-term health? Population growth, once a hallmark of Portland's appeal, has slowed dramatically. In some neighborhoods, it has even reversed, with more people leaving than arriving. When residents start leaving faster than they are replaced, the tax base inevitably erodes. This outflow of taxpayers creates a dangerous feedback loop, leaving fewer people to shoulder the city's growing financial burdens and reducing the revenue available for essential services. And that's precisely when a city can genuinely begin to crumble from within. Portland currently carries over $2.8 billion in unfunded liabilities, promises made without the dedicated funds to back them up. Furthermore, its economy is particularly vulnerable to downturns in the tech sector, a significant local employer, and shifts in work-from-home trends that impact downtown vibrancy and commercial real estate values. Portland is walking a perilous financial tightrope. Can a city so famous for reinvention find a path back to stability? Or are we witnessing the slow, painful unraveling of a place that once stood for everything modern, bold, and progressive? New Orleans, Louisiana. You hear the distinctive sounds of trumpets echoing through the streets. You see the colorful beads tossed during vibrant celebrations. New Orleans evokes images of lively festivals, rich history, and undeniable resilience. It feels like a perpetual celebration. However, beneath the captivating jazz music and the festive Mardi Gras masks, lies a city quietly drowning in financial quicksand. Welcome to New Orleans, Louisiana, a place where the unique culture thrives vibrantly, but the city's balance sheet is bleeding red ink. This is a city still grappling with the long-term effects of rebuilding after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, still recovering from the economic shocks of the COVID-19 pandemic, and now confronting a looming fiscal cliff that most of its residents don't even see coming. The layers of financial strain are complex and deeply rooted. You might be shocked to learn the extent of the city's financial woes. New Orleans received an F grade in fiscal health from independent auditors, signifying severe financial distress. This failing grade means the city owes substantially more money than it brings in through revenue. Compounding this issue is a heavy taxpayer burden. With over $21,900 owed per taxpayer, every resident is essentially stuck with a silent, accumulating bill, whether they are aware of it or not. Revenue gaps, the difference between income and expenses, continue to widen year after year, indicating a structural deficit. Simultaneously, public infrastructure, including roads, drainage systems, and public buildings, continues to crumble under the weight of years of chronic underinvestment and deferred maintenance. Adding another layer of vulnerability, the city's economy has an over-reliance on the tourism and hospitality industries. While these sectors are integral to the city's identity and provide many jobs, they are highly sensitive to economic downturns, natural disasters, and even shifts in travel trends. When tourism slows, the city's main revenue engine sputters, impacting everything else. And guess what's even more alarming? The city is responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in unfunded pension and healthcare obligations for its retired public employees. These are promises made in the past that the city currently lacks the funds to fulfill long-term. This creates a massive, hidden liability hanging over the city's future. So, what happens when the next major recession hits, or another significant hurricane strikes? How long can the city continue to function before the accumulated bills simply stop getting paid? Consider the potential impact on essential services, funding for public workers, the reliability of emergency services like police and fire departments, and the resources available for school funding. All of these hang precariously in the balance. The city's resilience, tested time and again, is undeniable. But resilience alone doesn't pay the bills. The unique charm and cultural richness of New Orleans remain. But the cold, hard math doesn't lie. When cities face this level of financial distress, they don't often collapse with a sudden bang. Instead, they tend to fade quietly, eroding through broken systems, deferred maintenance, and increasingly desperate budgets, until the quality of life fundamentally changes. St. Louis, Missouri, once proudly known as the Gateway to the West, a pivotal hub in America's westward expansion and industrial growth. Now, tragically, it risks becoming a gateway to financial ruin. At first glance, with its iconic arch and pockets of revitalization, you might not immediately suspect the depth of the crisis. But beneath the skyline and the undeniable historic charm, St. Louis, Missouri, is engaged in a fierce battle against a deep-seated fiscal crisis. This crisis is so severe that experts warn it could lead to collapse if the broader economy takes a significant negative turn. You would likely be shocked to discover that St. Louis is consistently ranked as one of the worst-performing cities in America when it comes to fiscal responsibility. According to data meticulously compiled by Truth in Accounting, a nonpartisan watchdog group, St. Louis has consistently received a D grade or lower in financial health for years. This poor rating reflects a persistent pattern of financial mismanagement and accumulating debt. The city is grappling with a growing taxpayer burden and, critically, a shrinking population. This demographic decline is a major red flag. Right now, the city owes more than $1.1 billion in unfunded pension and healthcare promises made to its retired public employees. These are substantial bills that the city simply does not have the dedicated funds to afford in the long run. This creates a massive financial overhang, jeopardizing future budgets. But guess what? The economic engine that once powered St. Louis, predominantly manufacturing and heavy industry, has been in steady decline for decades, mirroring the challenges faced by many Rust Belt cities. Thousands of well-paying jobs left the city, and tragically, many residents followed, seeking opportunities elsewhere. As a result, the city's population has plummeted dramatically, dropping by over 60% since its peak in 1950. This massive population loss has left behind a city struggling with crumbling infrastructure, widespread empty buildings, vacant lots, and a tax base that is simply inadequate to keep up with the city's financial obligations. Every time a resident or a business moves out, It means less tax revenue available for essential services like maintaining roads, funding schools, and ensuring public safety. The residents who remain are left shouldering an ever-increasing share of the growing debt and the cost of maintaining city services. Public services have already begun to slip noticeably. Crime rates remain a significant challenge, impacting quality of life and deterring investment. Schools are struggling to maintain basic standards amidst budget constraints. Basic infrastructure, like roads and bridges, suffers from deferred maintenance. With fewer than 300,000 residents left, the city's fundamental ability to sustain itself is now in serious jeopardy. So, the critical question looms. What happens when the next inevitable recession hits? When municipal funding sources dry up further and potential federal support runs thin? For St. Louis, unlike some other cities, there may be no effective safety net left to catch it. Dallas, Texas. It's big, it's bold, and by many appearances, it's booming. A symbol of Texas growth and Sun Belt prosperity. Or is it? With its gleaming modern skyscrapers and a carefully cultivated business-friendly image, Dallas projects an aura of success. It might genuinely surprise you, therefore, to learn that Dallas, Texas, is carrying a substantial amount of financial baggage heavy enough, according to some analysts, to potentially crush it in the next significant economic crash. The city's rapid growth, while impressive on the surface, may be masking underlying financial vulnerabilities. You would likely be shocked to know that despite its reputation for economic dynamism, Dallas earned an F grade in fiscal health from independent watchdog organizations that scrutinize municipal finances. This failing grade points to serious issues beneath the shiny exterior. The numbers involved don't lie and paint a concerning picture. The city is currently facing more than $3 billion in unfunded liabilities, primarily related to pension and retiree healthcare obligations. This means Dallas has made promises to its past and present employees that it doesn't have the dedicated funds set aside to cover in the long term. Crucially, the gap between what the city owes for these future benefits and what it can realistically afford to pay is not shrinking. It is widening each year. This escalating shortfall poses a significant risk to the city's future financial stability. Making matters more challenging, every taxpayer in Dallas would theoretically need to fork over an estimated $13,500 just to cover the existing shortfall and bring the city's books back into balance. This represents a considerable hidden burden on residents. But guess what is potentially fueling this precarious situation? Dallas has been heavily depending on borrowing and optimistic future revenue assumptions, projections that may not materialize if economic conditions sour or growth slows. While property values have been rising, contributing to tax revenue, the costs of maintaining city services and infrastructure are also increasing, often at a faster pace. Infrastructure across the sprawling city is aging and requires ongoing, costly maintenance and upgrades. Furthermore, the city's police and fire pension systems are reportedly facing significant financial trouble, adding another layer of complexity to the fiscal challenges. And all of this financial strain is occurring while the city races to keep up with population growth, which, while positive in some respects, also puts immense pressure on existing resources and demands further investment in services and infrastructure that the city is struggling to fund. And here's the wild part. For all its apparent wealth and economic activity, Dallas lacks a true rainy day fund, a substantial reserve specifically set aside that could effectively buffer the city from a major financial crisis or an unexpected economic shock. The facade of prosperity is undeniably real in many parts of Dallas, but underneath lies a municipal budget stretched dangerously close to its limits. If the national economy were to wobble significantly, Dallas wouldn't be immune. In fact, given its underlying financial weaknesses and lack of reserves, it might be one of the first major Sun Belt cities to feel the cracks appear. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steel built this city. Industry defined its identity for generations. It was an undisputed industrial powerhouse, the heart of American steel production. But beneath the grit and the undeniable pride of this historic American city, something dangerous has been quietly unfolding for years. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a city once forged in the intense heat of iron furnaces, is now buckling under the immense weight of accumulated debt. prolonged economic stagnation in its traditional sectors, and a persistent population decline. These factors combined could cause the city to explode financially if the economy crashes again. You might be shocked to learn the true state of Pittsburgh's finances. The city owes over $1.5 billion in long-term debt, a significant sum for a municipality of its size. And crucially, this figure doesn't even include the hundreds of millions more in unfunded pension and retiree health care promises made to its former public employees. These are massive future obligations that the city currently lacks the dedicated funds to meet. And here's the critical kicker. Each taxpayer residing in Pittsburgh would need to pay nearly $16,000, on average, just to cover the existing financial hole and balance the city's books. This isn't just a minor problem. It's a flashing red flag indicating serious fiscal distress. Once a booming hub of steel production and related industries, Pittsburgh has struggled, like many other Rust Belt cities, to fully reinvent itself in the modern post-industrial economy. Yes, sectors like technology, education, thanks to its universities, and healthcare are growing and providing new opportunities. However, the city's overall population has fallen dramatically, by more than 50% since the 1950s. This decline was driven by the collapse of the steel industry and the subsequent loss of jobs. This long-term population drain has left behind hollowed-out neighborhoods, aging infrastructure in desperate need of repair, and shrinking tax revenues. With fewer taxpayers and higher legacy costs, like those unfunded pensions, the city now spends more money just to maintain basic services, essentially treading water financially. And here's something that many people don't talk about: Pittsburgh's aging population. With a higher proportion of retirees compared to younger workers, the economic base supporting the city is weakening. There are more people drawing from the system, pensions, healthcare, than actively contributing to it through taxes. Who pays the bills when this imbalance grows? It's a city attempting to rise from its industrial past, but if the financial floor collapses due to a national recession or other economic shock, Pittsburgh could fall much faster than anyone currently expects. The financial foundation is simply not as strong as its steely reputation might suggest. Miami, Florida. Sunshine, stunning skyscrapers, sleek speedboats cruising turquoise waters, and luxurious high-rise condos lining the beaches. This is the image Miami projects to the world: a glamorous playground for the wealthy and a desirable destination. But beneath all that dazzling glitz and glamour, Miami, Florida, is confronting a perilous financial storm that almost no one is talking about. Until now. The city's finances are far more precarious than its sun-drenched image suggests. You would likely be shocked to discover that Miami carries nearly $2 billion in unfunded pension and retiree health care obligations. These are promises made to city employees for their retirement that the city currently doesn't have the money set aside to fulfill. This hidden debt is growing faster than the city can manage, creating a significant long-term financial risk. Making the situation even more critical, Miami operates on an incredibly razor-thin financial margin. It spends nearly everything it takes in each year, leaving virtually no room to breathe or handle unexpected crises. There's no substantial cushion for emergencies. In fact, the city has earned a failing fiscal grade from independent financial analysts, placing it among the most financially vulnerable municipalities in the entire country. But guess what? The situation gets even more complex and potentially dangerous. Miami is also one of the most climate-vulnerable cities in the United States, and indeed the world. Rising sea levels are already causing regular sunny day flooding in some neighborhoods, and the threat of more severe and frequent hurricanes looms large. These climate impacts are already costing the city millions of dollars annually in damages, infrastructure repairs, and preventative measures. Yet despite these clear and present dangers, the city continues to underinvest in long-term climate protection and adaptation strategies. Essential infrastructure, like seawalls, drainage systems, and roadways, needs massive upgrades to cope with future climate realities, but funding remains inadequate. Insurance costs for homeowners and businesses are skyrocketing due to the increased risks, making the city less affordable. At the same time, housing affordability is in free fall. Wages for average workers are not keeping pace with the rapidly rising cost of living, particularly housing costs. Homelessness is becoming an increasingly visible problem, and amidst these pressures, many developers, crucial to the city's real estate-driven economy, are reportedly pulling back on new projects due to rising costs and uncertainties. Tourism and real estate are Miami's economic lifeblood, but both industries are notoriously sensitive to economic downturns and external shocks, like pandemics or major hurricanes. One significant hit to either sector could send ripples of devastation through the city's economy, potentially causing thousands of jobs to vanish overnight. Without a diversified economic base or substantial emergency reserves, Miami could spiral downward alarmingly fast if faced with a major crisis. Add in the soaring cost of living, and residents are already stretched to their absolute breaking point. So, the crucial question remains: what happens when the money inevitably runs out? The weather hits hard with another major storm, and the mountain of bills comes due simultaneously. Miami isn't just a beach town. It's a major city walking a treacherous financial tightrope with very little safety net below. 10 cities, 10 stark warning signs. From the iconic skylines of New York and Chicago to the historic neighborhoods of New Orleans and Philadelphia, each of these places, symbols of American dynamism and history, is standing on increasingly shaky financial ground. The common threads are alarming: crippling debt, often hidden in unfunded pension and healthcare liabilities, populations that are either shrinking or shifting in ways that erode the tax base, and safety nets, the financial reserves meant to weather storms, that are wearing dangerously thin or are non-existent. When the next economic crash inevitably hits, and history tells us it will, some of these cities may not recover. The truth is, municipal collapse doesn't always look like sudden chaos and riots in the streets. Sometimes it's a quieter, slower, more insidious process. It manifests as a budget cut here, eliminating after-school programs. It's a broken streetlight there, left unrepaired for months. It's delayed trash pickup, crumbling roads, longer waits for emergency services, small erosions of the quality of life that accumulate over time. And then, one day, residents wake up and realize their city is no longer the place it used to be. The fundamental services they relied upon are diminished or gone. Debt is rising, populations are shifting, and the financial foundations are cracking. These aren't abstract problems. They have real-world consequences for the people living in these urban centers. The potential for collapse is real, and the impact could be devastating for millions of Americans. It's crucial to stay informed and understand the pressures facing our cities.